In Module 14, our lesson is going to be focused on our after reading strategies. There are some strategies in our toolbox that we use after we have read the text. Einstein said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." Now, why do you think I included this quote? I want you to reflect why you're here. We all have had struggles and hit stumbling blocks. In this case, it's a reading issue. Something about reading comprehension that you have struggled with in the past. Think about this. If you don't try something differently when you're reading, then your problems are probably going to remain. That's why I have offered all these strategies, all these tools in the toolbox. But you can't just try the tool once. You have to develop the discipline to consistently work through these strategies and see what happens. And I bet you're going to see different results. So hang in there with me, follow through, and one tool that I share may not work for you like it does for another person. Does that mean you throw out the whole entire toolbox? No, of course not. So you just try a different tool. Now I know we've gone through these before reading strategies quite a few times, and I'm not going to go over these again. One of the benefits of this online program is that you can go back and review any of our lessons, and then one of these tools, you're like, I need to know more about that. Then what do? You go find other sources or other tools that you can use to help you with that strategy. So these before reading strategies are ones that we have covered in detail about setting a purpose, previewing the material, activating your background knowledge. Recognize when your background knowledge is inadequate and know how to build up your background knowledge. And then confidently and eagerly approach your reading tasks. And the same with the during reading strategies. I'm not going to go over them like we have because we already have gone over them in detail. If you have forgotten something about one of these or just need a refresher, again, simply just go back to one of the other modules and give yourself that refresher. The during reading strategies that we have covered has been about focusing your full attention, developing an extensive vocabulary and how to do that. Constantly monitor your comprehension as you are reading and know how to fix your comprehension. Adjusting your rate of reading, making those connections like text to self, and integrate or hook your new learning with old learning. Now I put the SQ3R active reading strategy up here. And this chart is something that you may have been presented with from in high school, from a reading instructor, or you may have seen it in the past. And the reason I put it up here is because you probably have had different reading strategies presented to you. The SQ3R is one of the popular ones, the S standing for survey, which is kind of like the previewing text. The question is think about what you already know about the topic, the Q, and then the 3 R's are read, recite, and recall. Now that is a very simplistic reading strategy. So what I have attempted to do through all these days is develop on these and create even more tools than just this basic reading strategy. And today's focus is after reading strategies. Now I know what you may be thinking. Okay, instructor, I'm doing the before reading strategies. And I'm doing, consistently doing all these during reading strategies. You mean to tell me that I have strategies for after I read too? Yes. So go ahead and do your little happy dance. But seriously, after you have already previewed and read through the material, there are a few important actions that you must take if you want different results, okay? You don't just close the book at the very last word that you read in the material, close the book and say, I'm done. You don't do that. Let's be honest here. College textbooks and the material is supposed to be challenging and perhaps difficult. You need these tools to help you get through it. Think about it like building a house. You ever driven by a road and there's, construction, they're working on building a house, right? So we've all seen that. So what if you built the foundation and the walls, but you said, nah, I don't need a roof. I can manage without it. I've got all the other parts attached. I don't need to do any more. Plus, with the cost of lumber these days, forget about it. That would be silly, wouldn't it? You just wouldn't do that. The house would be unstable. The outside elements would get in and ruin it. You just couldn't live like that. It really wouldn't be a house. Same with reading. You need all the parts. The before, the during, and the after, which is, I'm going to call it the roof. To be the most successful reader, say you want your house solid, you need all the parts. So don't stop now. So here is the list of the remaining tools in our toolbox. The after reading parts. The 6 strategies I'm going to give you for after reading. Now, if you're keeping track of all these, and I certainly hope you are, add these 6 to your list. And here's what I do with my students in class. I either have them write it or type it up like on a bookmark and cut it out and keep it with them. If they can laminate it, that'd be great, but keep it with them in their notebooks or inside their textbooks, and that's always a consistent reminder. So when they're reading material, that would be used as their bookmark. I suggest you do it as well. It just keeps your strategies handy, and again, it serves as a great reminder as you're, get a hold of new reading material. The first strategy for after reading is to review, summarize, and reflect. Now, you've probably heard that before, but review is when you're reviewing the content, go through it with questions and asking, what did I get out of this? You can do that with each little section, but again, at the end of the entire reading as well. What did I get out of this? What did it teach me? And summarize, and the best way to summarize is if you can tell that content in your own words. If you had to teach it to somebody else, right? That is the best way to know if you know the material. And that is a good way to summarize. Just retell the content in your own words. Don't go back and reread the section and speak it out loud, just in your own words. And then reflect. What did you think about this topic? Yeah, that's making a connection to yourself and giving your own opinions and your own judgments, but what was the meaning of this material and what you thought about it? We want to, without looking in reviewing, we want to try putting the author's main point in one sentence. I don't care how large the material that you read was. If it was just a passage, a 1-page article, or a 3-page article, or a chapter, can you put the author's main point in a sentence? And if you can't, try going back and doing just go back and try doing some of the pre-reading strategies. Where you're reviewing and skimming and see, hey, wait a minute, these are the main headlines, these are the main points. Can I put the author's main point in one sentence? If you need to go deeper with information, and a lot of times in college, you do, especially with difficult material, it can be helpful as you're reviewing, going back over the content, as you're reviewing, just map it out or diagram, right? With one of the concept mapping, or you can choose a graphic organizer, or outline the article. And on this picture, on this slide, it's okay if you just want to even use sticky notes for the different parts, and that can be very helpful. Definitely put the main point or the thesis in a sentence on one sticky note, and then take another one and summarize paragraph 1 and then paragraph 2, and just kind of make an outline or diagram that way. I think it is also important that as you're reviewing, to really spend time on the parts that were confusing to you. Or one thing that you can also try as just another little tool is to go back and read aloud the parts that you don't understand. Now, I said read it aloud. Now, our brain will process things differently when we read them aloud than when we read them silently. And again, that's something you can try. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. Maybe read it as if you're reading it to someone else. But again, that's another tool you can try. Also, when you are spending time on those confusing parts of the material, I'm not saying the easier parts, the one, maybe you read an article and half of it was confusing. Go back to that 1/2 section or the 1/3 section and try posing questions for what's unclear. So you read something and you still have a question, just try to turn it into a question. And also in that section, do articulate, say, or write it down what you do understand. Okay, and try to narrow exactly what you don't understand. And that kind of pinpoints or puts a focus on what you need to go to read deeper, read closer, look up different sources. Okay, another after reading strategy is to actually evaluate the author's ideas and purpose. In doing so, you're going to judge the quality of the author's ideas. Remember, we know that there's always going to be an author's purpose. There's always going to be that main idea. Well, how'd the author do? Did they do a good job? Was the evidence that they provided in their writing enough to support their argument or to support their beliefs? And it's your job as the reader to judge if that author met their purpose. Remember those purposes. Did they inform you well enough? Or are you going to have to seek out additional resources? Did they persuade you with good quality evidence? Okay, so it's always evaluate the author's ideas and purpose. That means after the reading, you have to take the time to think about it. And again, when you are evaluating the author's ideas and purpose, you are putting yourself, you're throwing yourself and your opinions into it. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And that's okay, because see, you're thinking more about the content. Does it leave you with more questions? I see the author's point, but what about? Right? And the last one in yellow there is a personal connection. And you always want to make connections with the text or author of the text. So try to make a personal connection with that author or their material they have written when you can. Another after reading strategy is to ask more questions. I said this a second ago, but does the reading leave you with more questions that you would like to ask of the author or that you would like to look up? When synthesis or that new thinking occurs, then perhaps more questions evolve. And that can lead you wanting to know more answers, which may mean more research of that content. So after reading, go ahead and develop new questions. And that leads us to this strategy, which is to seek additional information. And where do you do that? There are many sources out there, not only to answer more questions that you came up with, but also to better comprehend the content. Maybe that science textbook was not enough. You just don't get it still. Well, go ahead and seek out videos on the topic. That's intelligent practice. That's what you do. So where do you look for these other sources? From other books, from other resources like videos, YouTube, internet, instructors. Go to your instructor, peers who seem to get it. Sometimes a peer, student at your age can explain it better than a professor. So seek out those other sources to make sure you understand the information. If you're reading an article by a particular author, maybe look up information on that author to give you a better idea of the content. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone does, whether you like people's opinions or not. And you have an opinion too. You don't have to like it. You don't have to believe the material that you just read or even agree with that content that you just read. You have a right to your opinion, and you have your own feelings about what you have read. And that's okay. So develop your own opinion about the material. Express pleasure, or other feelings about what you have read. And choose reading. I had to finish with this one. This is a strategy, believe it or not. Ultimately, a desired behavior is to choose reading for the sheer joy of it, or to value the learning that you're getting from it. So to have that develop within you, it is a very positive and desired behavior to do. You have to actually, why I consider it a strategy, is you have to mentally, and make that recognition that, hey, I'm going to choose reading for the joy of it, the value of it, what I'm gaining, the information I'm gaining from it. So I want to choose reading. For our summary today, our summary deals with the after reading strategies that are so, so important, and you cannot just avoid that. You cannot close the book and say, I'm done reading. You have to put forth that extra little push at the end. And that's to review your material, summarize your material, and reflect upon it. Evaluate your author's ideas and the purpose. Ask more questions from the content. Seek additional help from different sources. Express your own opinions. In other words, throw your own attitudes, your own personal beliefs into that. And then choose reading for joy. Reading is a way for me to expand my mind, open my eyes, and fill up my heart. Our declaration: I will practice all of my after reading strategies when I have completed my reading text.